Welcome to another session on cultural studies. Today, the focus is on Raymond Williams and his seminal essay, Culture is Ordinary. Raymond Williams is a Welsh Marxist theorist who writes mostly on politics, culture, and media. Very early, he fell under the influence of Marx, Gramsci, and Althusser. For some time, he was part of the Communist Party of Great Britain. And for some time, he also worked with the theorist and thinker Eric Hobsbawm. He had his education at Cambridge and later was associated with the universities of Stanford and Oxford. He himself claims that two works inspired and triggered his imagination and writing. One was the reading of Marx's Communist Manifesto, and the other was T.S. Eliot's Notes Towards the Definition of Culture, published in 1948. Raymond Williams has a number of important works and publications. Culture and Society was published in 1958. The Long Revolution, 61, The Country and the City, 73, Marxism and Literature, 77, Keywords, published in 76, a very interesting book where he takes many important terms and words associated mostly with theory and studies them threadbare, bringing out the manifold meanings these words hide. Words like aesthetic, bourgeoisie, hegemony, romantic, violence, anarchism, ecology, sex, etc. are some of the terms Keywords discusses. Television, Technology and Cultural Form was published in 74, in which he questions some ideas of Marshall McLuhan. Modern Tragedy came out in 79. If Raymond Williams had not been a theorist, he would have certainly become famous as a novelist. His novels like Loyalties, People of the Black Mountains, Border Country, Second Generation, The Volunteers, etc. are famous. Terry Eagleton was his dear student. Raymond Williams begins the essay by speaking about his working class background, family, farming community, and the land. It's only natural because the word culture itself has its roots in agriculture. Most cultural theorists, like Richard Hoggart in his Use of Literacy, and E.P. Thompson in the English Working Class, Raymond Williams also merges his personal life into the theoretical content. For him, it is a sort of rhetorical strategy, because culture is not placed on an ivory tower. His impoverished, idyllic childhood and Welsh landscape become embedded as episodes in his theoretical sojourn or journey. And the curious fact is that most of these cultural theorists don't face a lot of theory bashing and resistance. It would be interesting to look at a few lines with which Raymond Williams begins his essay. Quote, "The bus stop was outside the cathedral. The bus arrived with a driver and a conductress deeply absorbed in each other. We went out of the city over the old bridge and on through the orchards and the green meadows and the fields red under the plough. To the east, along the ridge, stood the line of grey Norman castles. To the west, the fortress wall of the mountains. Then, as we still climbed, the rock changed under us. The farming valleys, with their scattered white houses, fell away behind. I was born and grew up halfway along that bus journey. At 11, I went to the local grammar school and later to Cambridge. His grandfather was a laborer and his father began as a porter and then became a signalman. He even founded a trade union. Culture is ordinary, and hence, to grow up in the country is to see the shape of culture and its changes. In the family, one can see the shaping of minds, learn new skills, see changing relationships, and the evolution of different languages and ideas. Every society has its own shape, meanings, institutions, arts, and learning. Making of a society includes finding common meanings, debating, revising, and amending them. Society is in fact made and remade in minds. The mind is formed through slow learning, which leads to observation and communication. What is learned is then tested, making observations, comparisons, and meanings. Culture has two aspects. One, known meanings and directions. And two, new observations and meanings which have to be put to test. Culture is both ordinary common meaning, which includes arts and learning, and also a fine individual creative meaning. Therefore, culture is a whole way of life plus arts and learning. And the unification of these is important. In short, culture is both traditional and creative. General common purposes and deep personal meanings are there, but these raise questions. Raymond Williams every now and then uses the catchphrase, culture is ordinary. In fact, it works like a refrain or a pallavi in a kirtanam. There are two senses or colors of culture. One can be called the tea shop culture or the down-the-nose culture. And the second is the drinking hole culture or bad-mouthing culture. Tea shop culture, Raymond Williams associates or links to Cambridge. To those who think real culture is high culture, that is, art, music, literature, etc. This idea, in fact, creates a sort of division, a separation between the cultured versus the commons. One should realize that fine art is there even among the common people. Williams argues that he was in no way oppressed or overawed by Cambridge, because he too had come from a country with a great tradition, architecture, etc. The tea shop culture tried to show off, exhibit their sophistication, and that too through their behavior and speech patterns. But this is often questioned by the angry young men, and they feel that the best method of opposing this is simply ignoring this special cultivated culture. Some works, like Clive Bell's Civilization, exhibit their stupor and absurdity through their fussiness. The drinking hole culture excludes the ethical. They are, according to Raymond Williams, culture vultures. They focus only on the technical. By mixing scraps of linguistics, psychology, and sociology. They are humorless about art and learning. They claim to be do-gooders and highbrow. They spread cliches and jargons and are cheapjacks. They are mere publicity boys. One should understand that an interest in learning or the arts is simple, pleasant, and natural, and hence culture is ordinary. At Cambridge, Williams fell under two important influences. One of Marxism and the other the ideas of F.R. Lewis. From Marx, he got three ideas. One, culture is linked to means of production. Two, culture is class dominated and access to education is limited. Three, a new system of production is an imperative cultural directive or necessity. Williams agrees only with the idea that culture and means of production are linked. Williams opposes forced and prescriptive ways of creation. The Marxist idea of a dying culture and ignorant masses is totally wrong. The working class way of life, with its stress of neighborhood, mutual obligation, and common betterment, is certainly futuristic and is needed for the future English society. F.R. Lewis feels that the Industrial Revolution destroyed traditional culture and made it cheap and vulgar, and the only way to save it is through education. Williams opposes this and opines that Industrial Revolution brought improvements in everyday life and also brought along freedom and power. New technologies allow people to get over or overcome filth and ugliness. It is true that overcrowding, industrialization, and mass communication may create a category called masses. And these masses may have bad sensibilities. But what is important is one's point of view about the construct called masses, which means ways of seeing and looking is certainly relevant. The badness of popular culture does not in any way show true state of ordinary people. The English bourgeoisie culture has power and therefore doors are closed to the ordinary. But one should understand that these closed doors are slowly opening because anyway, the bourgeoisies are better than the old court people. Art and literature is national inheritance. Culture cannot be predicted. It has to be lived. The Marxists know more about English society, but F.R. Lewis knows more about art and experience. The old agricultural, traditional values of England is vanishing, and a new mechanist vulgarity is sweeping into the centers of power. But Raymond Williams feels that still values are existing in society, values that existed during the time of Shakespeare. For example, he cites a personal example. Quote, "When my father was dying this year, one man came in and dug his garden. Another loaded and delivered a lorry of sleepers for firewood. Another came and chopped the sleepers into blocks. Another, I don't know who, it was never said, left a sack of potatoes at the back door. A woman came in and took away a basket of washing." He cites this personal example to show how even in this mechanized industrial age, you have values and emotions existing. At home, everyone wants steam power, petrol engine and electricity. And therefore, the industrial society cannot be ignored. Writers, scholars and teachers can't ignore vulgarity of strip newspapers and cheap jacks. It is true that dirty water, earth bucket, walking 4 miles daily for work, headaches, broken women, hunger, monotony of diet, etc. have been replaced. Raymond Williams is hinting at the coming of aspirin, canned food, etc. A good common culture can be made only when the legacy of 2 false equations, 1, false analogy, and 2, false proposition are avoided. False proposition argues that new power brings in ugliness, overcrowding, etc. But this can be overcome through alternative, improved methods. The first false equation is that popular education causes commercial culture, and the use of popular culture leads to cheap and vulgar sensibilities. The second false equation is that the badness of popular culture shows the state of its consumers. The false analogy must also be rejected, which is in fact in the pattern of Gresham's law. That is, bad money will drive out good. So, bad culture will drive out good. But on the contrary, good literature, music, and visual art are emerging. So the idea or analogy that bad culture will drive out good culture is false. Education is ordinary. In fact, education is not just for the creation of jobs and creation of useful citizens. What is needed is common education, not specialization. That is, seeing nation as a firm, as a factory. You have specialized people working everywhere. That is not the objective of education. The syllabuses have to be redesigned with human relevance and control. No one should fear change. Polarization of culture should be avoided. Culture is not a ladder. It is a highway, which means it is not for the elite. It is not for the cultured upper class. It is for the common man, as the highway is for the ordinary man. Raymond Williams has 3 wishes. 1. There should be provision for more spending on arts and adult learning. Now, there is too much spending on advertising. 2. Regional recreation should be encouraged, which means everyone need not rush to London for recreation. 3. There must not be ready-made culture for masses. Everyone should be ready for change. There is an argument that nothing running at a loss should be supported. But then everyone should understand that even the parliament is running at a loss. There should be common payment for common services. TV, newspapers, etc. use advertisement to compensate their loss. This provision should be given to all cultural institutions, and only then they can be saved. The mass culture is linked to capitalist society. So shouts of the market or monolithic control systems are not relevant anymore. It is necessary to pay for common services, but strangely, both capitalists and labor oppose this. Raymond Williams concludes his essay by saying that the ordinary people should govern. Culture and education are ordinary. There are no masses, but only crowded people expanding their lives. A writer deals with individual meanings, and meanings are expanding and changes are writing themselves into the land. And the language changes, but the voice remains.